Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, where we bring awareness of sustainable health in the business hustle space. Natural Health Podcast is perfect for the high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve optimal health. It's Friday, which means it's time for friends sharing facts about health, business, and overall success. In today's episode, we talk to Belle Conde, who will talk about how you are able to step into your hidden feminine energy. Belle is a transformational coach and Reiki practitioner. She understands that her energy is everything and helps women to restore and uncover the energetic blockages holding them back. Commencing her career in nutrition and exercise science and having worked as a health coach, it was a natural progression to become a coach that she is today. Belle uses a combination of Reiki and intuitive coaching methods to take women on deep and inner journeys of themselves, helping them to step back into their feminine essence with confidence so they can become their most powerful and best self. And a few interesting facts about Belle are that she actually spent 7 nights in the cave alone in Guatemala doing a dark retreat. She left a job as a physiotherapist at the age of 28 from Australia to go and work on a luxury yacht and travel the world. And she recently married her beautiful fiance on their deck at home in South Africa in November last year. Just the two of them due to the COVID restrictions. Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, Belle.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be here on this beautiful podcast with you and be talking to a fellow Aussie.
I'm absolutely excited. I mean, I don't know what is a bit more crazy, leaving Australia to work on a luxury yacht or spending 7 nights alone in a cave in Guatemala. I don't know which one's more crazy.
I think they're both pretty crazy. And when people start talking to me and some of this stuff comes out, maybe not necessarily like packing up my life and leaving Oz, but that was a pretty big move, of course. It always is when you do that and you go out on a whim. But yeah, whenever the story comes out about spending 7 days in a dark cave, people's mouths just drop. And they want to know why would I go and do something like that?
Yeah, why would you?
I mean, basically, I had done my yoga teacher training in Guatemala. I took a 10-month sabbatical. I traveled through Central and South America. It was an incredible experience. And I've always just been someone who has, thankfully, and I would say it's a part of who I am, being very in tune with my gut instinct. So I do things based on, I'm like, that's what I need to do right now. And that's been a huge part of my growth and learning. So I'd done this yoga teacher training. I was in Guatemala and we had at the yoga teacher training at the ashram, they had a facility that a man-made dark cave for doing dark retreats. Now, none of us knew anything about it. And so they customarily take the students in who are doing their teacher training to do a lecture in there. And when I did this lecture, I was 20 of us in this dark cave. They closed the doors. There's 2 doors to go in and out. I felt really anxious and I just was like, oh my gosh, this is really weird. What is this? And me and another girl that was in there at the time also felt it. And I actually wanted to get out. Like I was on the verge of a panic attack in this room. And they wouldn't let us go out, so we had to stay in there for the entire length of the lecture. And then we came out, and it stuck with me. It stuck with me for a few years. So that was in 2015, and I went back in 2017, and I decided to face that fear. But also I did a lot of research about it, and I think a lot of it was also about, I've always been scared of the dark since I was a little girl. I always had my light on, there was just always this kind of fear. So it was about like facing that fear, but it wasn't just about facing that fear. Darkness is an incredible time to retreat and go within. And being alone is also a really incredible time to grow and to heal. So it's been likened to being in the womb space and going back to the womb. And so I wanted to face that fear. And there was always the option that if it got too much, I could get out. Like I knew that was an option. And yeah, for me, it was just like, what is beneath this fear, and what's so scary about peeling back these layers? How can I go back there and, and sit in that space and be comfortable in that space? And I loved it. I did. I loved it. I did have times where I was extremely bored, and I did have times where I definitely felt super anxious. But it was a beautiful, unraveling and experience. I have actually done a podcast on that. You can check that out. It's on the Rebecca Nielder podcast. I've done a podcast that you can hear more about that, and I am more than happy to dive into some detail about the things that I uncovered and learnt in that time. But I would say one of the biggest things that I got out of that was the love and the healing power of going, being alone and just being able to sit in that space and really deepen your experience of yourself and get into a relationship with yourself.
Wow. And we can just end the podcast right here, I guess. I mean, that is in depth. There's so many things I can pull out of that. Wow. Being similar to the womb, going back to the womb, self-love, darkness, alone, losing the sense of eyesight. And that is just, wow, good on you for doing that. And I can just imagine the anxiety that would have came with that at the start initially. And the self improvement, what you've learned about yourself, how you've developed, and now you can just actually face darkness and you're all right.
Yeah, and I think that's the other big thing, right? It strips back the layers. And there's a beautiful quote about going into the darkness, and the darkness tends to be something people are so afraid of. And I knew that, when I say I was scared of the dark, I think for me, I didn't recognize that was deeper than just being scared of the physical dark. It was the emotional dark of what's the darkness inside of me. What are these pieces of me that I'm hiding? What are these pieces of me that I don't want to let out or come to the surface? And that's what it enabled. It really allowed me to view my life almost like a movie screen and unfile it and come to a real understanding of it through that time, and just understand why everything had happened, understand why I was the way I was, understand who I came here to be, understand, so many pieces, and the reasoning behind everything. I do think there's a perfect chaotic order to our lives, and we try to control so much of our lives, but in actual fact we can't control it. We need to surrender. So a lot of it was about that beautiful surrender into that darkness. It was about peeling back those layers and layers and layers of myself to come to the core of who I was, to understand why I was put here, my purpose. And that that was incredible, to really be able to come to that deep understanding and love, that deep love for yourself. Because when you can't see yourself and look in the mirror, and I don't know how many women out there who are listening know that they look in the mirror and the first thing they say is a negative thought to themselves, that can set the tone for the day, because you don't think you look great that day or whatever. But there's none of that. There's no mirrors, there's no light. You are just sitting there with you. And it's a really beautiful space to learn to love and lean back into yourself.
Yeah, wow, that would be absolutely transformational. And I mean, some viewers watching or listening, they might be like, wow, I'm going to go do that. So good on them. And I'm going to definitely check out that podcast about you talking more about it. And I'll put that in the show notes also. So I can't wait to jump onto that to find out a little bit more. But yeah, like you said, us, not just women, us as humans, we wake up and the initial thought of us may be a negative thought. And that is how we talk to ourselves, unfortunately, putting so much pressure on ourselves, so much negative talk about us. And that's how we set our day. And then we're like, oh, we're in a bad mood. I wonder why.
Yeah, exactly. And when you sit in that silence and sit and be with yourself, you have time to dissect those thoughts, to tune in or tune out. And it's to have that time and space to, catch a thought and then go with it, or choose not to and see how that, unravels without the distractions of the outside world, without the distractions of day to day. It's an incredible gift to be able to give that to yourself. And I see that was an incredible gift that I was able to give myself. It's not for everyone. Like, let's just say it's not for everyone. You do have to have done Vipassanas, so silent retreats. Like, you have to have done at least a 3-day silent retreat before you can go and do a dark retreat. And there's great benefits to doing silent retreats for sure. So if a dark retreat's not something you feel quite ready for, I definitely recommend trying a silent retreat.
Yeah, I was actually looking into doing silent retreats about 3 years ago. Don't know why I haven't gone to it yet. Last year due to COVID, that didn't happen. I mean, I think that was a whole silent retreat the whole year for me anyway.
Exactly. And that's what challenged people, right, during COVID, is just this disconnect and this alone time and this thing. But I think it's a beautiful opportunity for us all to go back and connect with ourselves and see what matters in the world to us. And yeah, that definitely the periods of lockdown have been a time of retreat, and we need to see that as a gift, because we don't get these opportunities all the time. And rather than look at it as a negative thing, you spin it around and be like, wow, like, I get this time. Like, I get this time for me.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, there's so many positives that came out about last year, talking to family and friends, and some are like, wow, I've actually realized what I want in life. I've set my foundations. I know where I'm going to go forward. I don't want that job that didn't want to keep me. I've changed careers. I'm starting a family. I'm doing this. So many new things have come about it. And I know, even talking to some, because I don't know if you know, but us here in Victoria, Melbourne, we were in like hardcore lockdown. Luckily for me, I'm in regional Victoria, so I wasn't as hardcore as Melbourne, but most of my friends and family were in Melbourne. So there was a hard border, which means I wasn't able to see them at all. And that happened for months, right? And it was crazy. And I was talking to a few friends the other day, and they were like, oh, we should go back to that. And when that was happening, there's no way that they would say that. And the reason why they were saying that is because they were spending more time with their kids. They're spending more time with their partner. They're spending more time on their business. They're spending more time on their exercise. They actually got to focus on themselves, exactly what you were saying.
No, 100%. We've had various levels of lockdown. We're in a reasonably strict lockdown at the moment, but also we went into a hardcore lockdown from March, and it was supposed to be 3 weeks and turned into a few months as well. And Craig and I, that's my husband, we thought about, and we should have actually done something about it, was we lived and worked on yachts for close to 8 years, both of us. And so we breezed into lockdown because we've been at sea for months at a time, stuck with the same 10 to 20 people, and not having Wi-Fi at times because you're in the middle of the ocean. So for us, we were like, we know lockdown is like a normal way of life, but we just found it funny because we have only been back on land now for close to 3 years, and we were like, oh, now we get back, and our second year of being on land and they want to put us back in this lockdown. At least we could, go outside and put our feet on the ground. Like, sometimes we were in waters where it was so dangerous we weren't allowed to go outside on deck. So we were literally stuck inside.
Wow, that sounds crazy, but also beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
Exciting. Well, all this talk. I love it. And I know we've got to know a little bit about you already, but I wanted to know, what are some key turning points in your life that got you to where you are now, being a transformational Reiki practitioner? What are the key turning points that made you who you are now and got you to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this question. And as you can probably see from what's already been introduced, I've been someone who's just jumped out there and done a lot of crazy things, but I wouldn't see them as crazy. When I've been able to reflect, I know that they happen for a reason. So I've always had this intuition and this thing inside me that I was meant for more, that I was meant for more of a purpose. So I never quite understood what it was. And I know that all these things that I did have led up to that. Now I'm really grateful to be living that purpose. So I guess I'd say probably maybe 3 or 4 big things would be ending a 10-year relationship. I was in a 10-year relationship from 17 to 27, living the normal standard societal life of university, living with him on that track, like on that path to marriage and kids and that normal, I think, life. When something inside of me was like, there's something not quite right here. It just didn't feel, for whatever reason. He was my best friend. We had, a great relationship, but for whatever reason, there was something missing and I didn't know what it was. And I just couldn't go on in that relationship. I ended that relationship a year and a half later, packed my life up, like I said, and out on a whim, went off to France, went to the south of France to start working on yachts. So it was a crazy thing to do, but definitely a huge turning point. I know that it provided me the opportunity to take the deeper dive into myself, because when I was in Oz, I was trying to stick to those timelines, that kind of pressure. Like
a little handbook that you're given when you're
the handbook.
Here's the little handbook.
Yeah, and I was on that path. I studied exercise science and nutrition. I love health science. I studied to become a physiotherapist. I was working as a physiotherapist, but even then, even with my clients, there was something deeper missing, and I didn't understand what it was. And I had to take my own personal journey to uncover what it was, what was missing, because like working with these people, I just realized like it wasn't all about food. It wasn't all about exercise, that they were great components. They're great components to healthy life, but they're not everything. And people are I was looking for more. So taking that step was one of those things that provided me incredible opportunities to be able to not just travel the world, but to go and do some amazing retreats around the world to really uncover who I was, so that then I could step back into this coaching in the best way possible. And I had, as I said, it's been a combination of my own personal experience, personal development, as well as doing loads of courses and teaching and coming across beautiful, amazing people that have helped me on this journey to where I am now. And other couple of things I would say that have been huge in my thing, that 10-month sabbatical that I took in traveling Central South America, that was huge. Traveling alone, learning to be alone. I don't know about listeners here, but being alone when I speak to people, it's like, that was a huge thing. And then going back and doing the dark retreat was a huge turning point in my life. I wasn't afraid to be alone anymore. I didn't need to fill my life with gaps, or when I didn't have anybody that was here present with me, I didn't have to pick my phone up and be scrolling. So like learning that was a huge thing. The other two big things that have happened for me is I had extreme burnout in 2018 and adrenal fatigue, which led to leaky gut, which led to allergies, various hospitalizations. It was a really scary time in my life. But funnily enough, I was studying to be a health coach at the time, whilst I was working on a super yacht. So I was burning the candle at both ends and biting off more than I could chew. But that was a huge turning point, because I understood I was undergoing that, because I could then show up and teach from that place and understand the importance. And that for me was a huge part. I mean, the topic today, the feminine energy, the masculine, the feminine, of just thinking I could do it all. That was a smack in the face. And that was huge. I had days where I didn't think I'd wake up the next morning. I was riddled with anxiety. So that was a pivotal part in my journey to be in the health space that I am now. The transformational state that I, was able to embrace, not just the food aspect of what was going on, but the emotional states, the stress states, and how to really come back from that, honor that. And then lastly, last year for me was one of the most pivotal times in my life. We almost lost everything. We had to cancel our wedding, and that was huge. Just, not necessarily cancelling the wedding. I was okay to surrender that over, but it was just knowing I wasn't going to see my family. When would I see them? I still don't know when I'll see my family. Then we decided to start trying for a baby, and unfortunately we lost that baby 9 weeks into the pregnancy. And only a couple of weeks after that, we had Craig and I had been working incredibly hard on the yachts. We'd saved up a lot of money and invested it. And the investment fund that we went into kind of went under, or there's some stuff that we're still trying to figure out, but we may have lost like most of our savings due to that. So it was just blow after blow after blow of stuff. But I must say, like, that was huge for us, because I was able to, through all the stuff, all the work I've done, all the years of different retreats, all of the practical tools, all of the courses I've done, I handed it over. I just surrendered it. Last year was about surrender. Last year was about letting go. One of the key things to our beautiful feminine energy is surrender and letting go. And I realized, like, last year I was trying to control and hold on so tightly to everything. Like, when's the perfect date for my wedding? When's the perfect date then for this baby to be born? Like, instead of actually thinking there may be a bigger plan and there may be something better and, that's waiting for me. So stop trying to control, just surrender and allow it to happen. So it was a big lesson. Like, I just, and I love it. I love what I do, because every time I feel like I get like a layer peels back and I learn something and I uncover something comes along that's like massive that I get to learn again and get to lean into, and I know that I have these experiences so I can show up and be the coach. Like, the miscarriage, there was a lot of grief with that. There was a lot of sadness, but there was also so many amazing things that came out of it. My fear for pregnancy is gone, because like I got to experience, so much during that time. And I really embraced that. I really embraced everything about having that, and just knowing that it was okay. 1 in 4 women experience a miscarriage. And just because I experienced that doesn't mean I need to lean into fear then the next time a pregnancy comes around. I learned some incredible things through going through the miscarriage. The pain of that and what it taught me was just unbelievable. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next chapter and seeing what's next.
Yeah, wow. Definitely some key turning points. And I love how transparent and vulnerable you are here with us and sharing that information. A lot of us don't share information about, our personal life, like miscarriages, births and things like that. And yet alone do we share things like financial failure. We usually talk about financial success, which is so interesting that you're talking about that and touching on that, because I think that should be spoken about more, because the individuals that are so-called successful in life, in that you will see at the, in a finance business and business and so forth, and companies wise, we only see their success, but they've gone through so much failure. And exactly what you've spoken about, all of the self-work that you've done on yourself throughout the years, like that dark retreat, that would have helped you deal with those dark moments that you had last year. And you're here today with a smile thanks to that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I honestly, it might sound strange, but I am grateful for the miscarriage and what it taught me. It was an extremely painful experience. I experienced a labour with my miscarriage. I didn't have the surgery to remove the fetus, and it was a process. But it was just so peaceful and beautiful. And my partner was there, and he was loving, and he held me, and it was the unraveling. Like, I was able to lean into, again, I'm mentioning, into that feminine energy. And I want to swear here, but I'm not going to. But flip, we as women are powerful. The energy we harness, we are powerful. We are amazing. That taught me we can do hard things, and it just, I've recently, since the adrenal fatigue, suffered with anxiety and those sorts of things. And having that experience, it just like shone a light on so much, because it was like, no, we can do hard things. Let's lean back. Let's surrender. Let's stop trying to control everything.
Yes, so true, so true. 100% couldn't agree more. And we'll get into that deeper into the podcast. But before that, I wanted to ask you about success. I know I spoke a bit about what, financial success and all this forward, but at the moment with what you've been through, what does success look like for you right now?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head before when you were just saying about, success, and no one hears about people's failures. And, that I think is what if you speak to any really successful person, it'll be that they got back up and continued on their journey. And, a few years ago, I definitely would have had a different answer, and it probably would have been more based on achievements. It would have been more based on wealth and career and material possessions. But I definitely think that, particularly last year, that success for me has more to do with the overall way that you live your life, the overall way you show up, the overall way you handle when life gets you down, how you get back up, how you navigate that, how you allow yourself to fall, because we're all going to fall. I'm going to fall again, so success shouldn't be defined by the times that you're only at the high, or the only because you've got fame or you've got wealth. It should be so much more than that. To me, it should be so much more than that. It's about living with more harmony, with more joy, with more peace in my soul and heart. It's about the abundance of love I've got in my life, like in my relationships, in my family, like having that support means success to me. It's also about having my health. Like, these sorts of things are my indicators for success, and taking care of my needs is also in that. When you take care of your own needs and you ensure your cup's full, then you can pour from that beautiful cup. And I know that when I had adrenal fatigue, I didn't feel successful for one.
Far from it.
And I had nothing to give. So success to me is being able to have a full cup and then being able to give, because I think that's, as humans, one of our core needs is to be able to share our beautiful selves, to help other people grow, to help other people elevate. So yeah, when nothing lights me up more than being able to pour from a full cup, seeing my clients grow, seeing my clients succeed. But I first and foremost have to give myself that full cup and prioritize myself as well.
Yeah, that's such an empowering answer in regards to success. And I mean, essentially, like you said, it changes throughout the years, throughout the phases that we go through, which is quite interesting. But let's get into today's topic, which I'm so excited to talk about. I know you touched upon it a little bit, but we're going to go a little bit more in depth. And I'm so excited about how to step into your hidden feminine energy. So before we get started, it would be amazing if you can actually outline masculine and feminine energy to us briefly.
Yeah. Firstly, I just want to say I'm super honored to be speaking about this, because this topic is something I'm so passionate about and has changed my life. Like, when I learned to lean into my feminine, just stuff unfolded so much better and with more ease and grace. And I've slipped back into the masculine ways over the years because it's in my personality. And firstly, I want to say as well, we're all made up of masculine and feminine energy. So just because you're a female doesn't mean that your energy is solely feminine. It's a component of that masculine and feminine, and that's what creates the balance. It's the yin and the yang. We wouldn't operate very well if we were just feminine energies. We need the masculine energy. So let's define those two energies. So the masculine energy, which is the yang energy, it's more assertive, okay? It's controlling. It's the logical process. It's connected to the mind, whereas the female is connected more to the feeling and the sensations and stuff in the body. It's also it can be a competitive energy, and that's where I think my masculine comes out. I'm a competitive person. especially in sports. So this side of me comes out, and there's a place for that. But it's also very much based on achievement, as opposed to collaboration. So, you can see listening to this, like you're like, ooh, some of those masculine traits are needed. Like you need to be direct, you need to have the logical, you need to have the mind, you need to have that going like for you. But then you also need to encompass some of the beautiful feminine energy, which is that softer, more passive, more nurturing energy. It's also connected to the intuitive part of yourself. So as females, I don't know if you've heard it before, but when someone's like, oh, it's a woman's instinct, that's because for females, and I don't know if I mentioned this, yes, we have that yin and the yang. We have masculine and feminine. Females have more of a feminine energy and males have more of a masculine energy. If we didn't, we wouldn't be attracted to one another. So we have to kind of balance that out. So it's not like 50-50. But, we'll get into the imbalances and what that creates soon. But yeah, this feminine, this intuitive process, like that is such a beautiful thing about our feminine energy, to be connected to the intuition, that place in you that just knows. And it's also a really beautiful, creative and expressive energy. When you're tuned into that feminine energy, there can be a lot of space for creating. And I think that's, when a woman's in her power, having that ability is so magical, so magical. And like I said, it's based on more feeling as opposed to the masculine energy, which is based on more doing.
Yeah, nice. I love that. And I love how you said that it's the yin yang, that we need a bit of both. And just because we're female doesn't mean we're all feminine energy, or just because we're male, we're all masculine energy, and that we need both. And I could just imagine the people that are listening to this podcast might be like, oh, yes, that is me. A little bit more of that. I'm a little bit more of that. So we're interested in hearing later when you talk about the imbalances. But before getting into that, I wanted to ask, talking about what you spoke about, I see a lot of females, and I hear a lot of females hiding their feminine energy. Why do you think that occurs?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest reasons this occurs is because over the years, there's become a real push for gender equality. And for females being seen as equals in the workplace. Women have stepped up, stepped out, not just in the workplace, but as athletes, demanding to have this equal rights. And I am not saying that's wrong. I think we as females are badass, and we do deserve to have these equal rights. But because we've come with, this is new. This is like, since the 50s, basically. So sorry, 70s. But like we're talking about 50 years of this kind of feminist movement. And prior to that, women had a role of really staying at home and that was their job. So as women have stepped into this, they're really navigating new ground on how do I show up as the CEO or as the corporate woman or as the athlete. And because these have been predominantly a masculine dominated industry, the energy that's there is still predominantly masculine. So women are being forced without knowing, it's a subconscious thing, that if they want to succeed in their areas, they must hide their feminine energy. There's no place for that feminine energy within that workplace. The other reason I think is linked to women and men are very different. Women are from Mars, men are from Venus, right? Men don't menstruate as women do. And, as a result of us being these beautiful cyclical beings, our energies, our hormones, they ebb and flow. And we must honor that. But we've come to hide that. A lot of women have come to feel shameful about that. As a result, they're hiding that feminine energy, because when we're cycling at the time of menstruation, our energy is a lot less than, when, after you've menstruated, your energy is much higher, because naturally your body should be retreating. It should be going into an intuitive process of reconnection. So women have just, women who are on the pill, things like that, missing periods. And I'm someone who is very much a natural person, so I don't believe in the contraceptive pill, but I do understand it helps women for a variety of reasons. But like pushing that away, and I've got to work, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do that. So the hiding of the feminine energy has just become this norm for so many women, because they think it's weak to lean into the feminine. They don't want this feminine energy because they want to be in the masculine world. And I can relate. When I first started working, basically even most of my careers, although when I worked as an exercise science and nutrition, I worked afterwards as a personal trainer and a nutritionist in women's only gyms. But I had a masculine energy about me, a real kind of sporty, masculine energy. And then I went on to be a physiotherapist, and I worked in an all-male physio practice. I then went on to work in the yachting industry, which is a male-dominated industry. There's no time for you to feel the emotions of your cycle. There's no time for you to work a little bit less because maybe, your body needs that rest. You've got to go, 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 go. And that's what pushes us women to want to hide this energy.
Yeah, you said that so perfectly. I love how you said that it's a new thing that we're experiencing, and we're trying to push into a kind of like a masculine system. Like we're trying to get into the masculine system, the feminine, but we're getting sucked into it. And it's so interesting. And I was just thinking about when you were talking, and I was like, imagine if males had their menstrual cycle. I can just imagine when they got it, they'll be like, I have my menstrual cycle today. Like they'll be so like out there about it. And it's like, yeah, it's like success. Like my menstrual cycle's on time. Is yours? Like it'll be kind of like that, that competitiveness. Whereas us females, we no one really talks about it. No one talks about, the endometriosis and so PMS. And so things, they're all new things that we're talking about. And most of them actually are also seen as a negative, like a negative feeling about it, being the feminine and thing. And I love that you spoke about how, we are hiding it more these days than we have due to, the system that we're living in.
Yeah. And in a perfect world, and I think I feel super grateful for the work that I do, and in my role that I can honor myself and my cycle as working from home and working for myself. But the thing I think that's really important, and that I think I'd love to get across in this episode, is just, even if you are working in an office, get familiar with your cycle and start to try and just honor yourself in small ways with that, and you will start to see some shifts, because the more that you understand and tune in with your beautiful feminine body and vessel, then the better that's going to be for your health. Because I believe that it's through some of these problems, some of these hormonal imbalances, health problems, and etc., that we're seeing more and more and more of is as a result of us hiding that feminine energy. It's a result of pushing it down and not acknowledging it, that we're having these health issues, having hormonal problems because we're actually out of balance.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with you in regards to getting to know your cycle, when you're ovulating, and you're supposed to you would probably know as a personal trainer, you're supposed to train differently in accordance to your menstrual cycle. You're supposed to eat differently in accordance to your menstrual cycle. You're going to feel different feelings in accordance to your menstrual cycle. And instead of sitting there and being like, why am I feeling like this? You can just be like, yes, I know why I'm feeling like this, because I'm ovulating, or I'm due in a few days, and I'm more extroverted because I've just had my period. And yeah, it's interesting.
It's a big one, and it's something I work on as well with a lot of my clients. And I had a client of mine just not long ago, a couple of times actually, I've had to remind her. She's a stay-at-home mum. She works though for herself. She's in the network marketing business, and she's very high energy. But when her cycle comes, she forgets it's coming, and then she reaches out and she's like, oh my God, I don't feel like doing anything today. I'm procrastinating. I just can't get anything done. And I'm like, where are you in your cycle? And she's like, oh, yeah. Now I know why I feel that way. And it's like a bomb or a light bulb goes off in your head the minute that you realize, oh, it's okay that I'm feeling a little bit low in energy, that I'm not able to be as productive. Like you said, like eating differently, exercising differently. Yeah, when you're like coming up to your cycle, and when your cycle, you start menstruating, you're not supposed to be going out and going for runs and doing HIIT training. It doesn't serve you. You're supposed to do gentle, restorative exercise if you feel like it. You know, exercise has been shown to help with menstrual cramps, but gentle, go for a walk or a swim. Do some gentle stretching, and that will help the hormones and what's going on. You know, tune in and listen to the body right before as well, when you're really craving all of those like sugars and stuff like that. In actual fact, if you go into those cravings, you can actually create worse cramps and worse problems. So like maybe the fact you're craving chocolate is actually more to do with magnesium. So get some tissue salts, magnesium, and take that instead, or have some good quality high chocolate, good quality dark chocolate. I'm all about that. Like, but you only need 1 or 2 pieces, and it's going to have the magnesium you need, as opposed to like eating a dairy milk bar of chocolate.
100%. No, I love that. 100%. And also what I've realized is that females around me, and even myself, there's, you know, we tell ourselves some stories, and there's fear around, you know, stepping into our feminine energy. And there's these stories in our head. If I step into my feminine energy, this is what's going to happen. If I'm too feminine, this is what's going to happen. So what are some stories that you have come across that females tell themselves that hold them back?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things in this, and this is what I've, like my own personal experience, was that there's a fear of being fully seen. So female energy is designed to be open and vulnerable. We're designed to have these beautiful open hearts, to connect, to have relationships with people, to share bonds. And women fear, and they fear it from each other too, because we put this masculine energy on. It's not natural for females to be competitive with one another. We're supposed to collaborate and share. Women used to, sit with one another. They used to pick berries. They used to, when the men went off, they were all in communion with one another. That's how we as women are. We didn't go off like the men did, singularly hunting and competing. No, we shared what was in our baskets. We collaborated. But we've got into that habit, and there's this fear about being open. There's this fear of being fully seen and being vulnerable, being judged. There's also this fear of, if we open up ourselves, or if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, that people will think less of us as well. That as you step into this feminine energy, it's a weaker energy. So it's very much being viewed as a weaker energy, rather than as the strong, powerful energy it is. And this is why a lot of women are burning out, because they're not able to ask for help, because the fear is, I wanted to have the equal rights, right? This is coming back from back then, and it might not come from us, it might come from our ancestral. We wanted equal rights, we wanted careers, but we also want to be a mum and a housewife, and this and that and this and that. So males has still been able to just do their normal role, but females are taking on everything, and they want to do it all. And the fear is, if they can't do it all, they're a failure, which is absolutely rubbish. You know, this certainly, for me, we were not designed to do it all, and we should be putting up our hand, leaning back. We should be able to ask for help from our partners, from our family, from our kids. You know, women don't need to be superpowers. So I get this fear as well, that if they back off the accelerator, that they'll lose everything. You know, I've coached women, and like this blows my mind, but I've coached a woman. I'm going to use one example here of someone I have coached, and I'm still working with her now. She continued to work a full-time job, be a mother, be a wife, whilst undergoing breast cancer treatment during a double mastectomy and losing multiple family members.
Wow.
Like, when I heard this, I was like, whoa, woman. Like, I mean, that's the definition of just, she's a badass woman, and she's powerful. to have pushed her way through that. But now she's suffering like the outcomes of that, and she's rebuilding and learning herself and getting to know herself through that. So yeah, there's this huge idea that if women surrender, we'll be tripped up, and surrender's not weak. Surrender's about letting go of resistance. It's about opening ourselves up. So these fears we have, we need to look beneath them and redefine what it is that is beneath that fear, because surrender is actually beautiful.
Yeah, and exactly what you were just saying. I can feel everyone just nodding, and like if they're walking and listening to this, they're like, yep. If they're just sitting there doing 100 things at once, as you know, as a woman would do, I can see them nodding and being like, wow. And then just stop, sit down on the couch and just be like, breathe into what you just heard. What you just heard is extraordinary. Like, breathe into that and let it sit with you, because yeah, like you said, surrender is huge. And once you surrender, you're actually more powerful than actually needing to always have that masculine energy and pushing through and actioning and doing the to-do list. Just be, and things will come and you'll be in tune, because that is the power that we have. And we're trying to be like, no, don't give us that superpower. And we're over there looking for another superpower that someone else has, that, you know, but we have ours right here. I just think it's extraordinary. Don't get me wrong, I fall into that every day. Like, I push, I've got a lot of masculine energy where I want to achieve things and do things, and I'm going through the journey of trying to balance the feminine. This is why I got you on the podcast to explain a bit more about it and share it, because of, you know, I've been reading about it, I've been listening about it, and I think it's absolutely extraordinary and so powerful. Like, if we're looking for an asset, you know, that to invest in, this is an asset to invest in.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I had for me, I just share a little story. My light bulb moment was actually regarding the feminine and the masculine energy was when I was doing my yoga teacher training. I came across a book called Dear Lover. It's by David Dider, and it's a woman's guide to men, sex, and love's deepest bliss. And he's an incredible author, and I devoured that book. But you know, if anyone wants to go and like look into that a little bit more and read that book, it's just a really good overview to understanding the masculine and the feminine energy. And for me, I can hands down 100% say I would not be in the relationship I am. I would not be married and where I am I'm not going to say had I not read that book, but had I not come across that concept and then started to dive deeper into it. So coming across that concept for me, and I hope this is lighting some light bulbs for some women, enabled me to see where I was stepping into my masculine and see where I could step back and step into my feminine. And ultimately, that's how I feel like I was able to attract the beautiful, loving relationship that I have, because I got out of my own bloody way. You know, I got out of my own stubbornness. I stopped trying to do everything for myself and leaned back and allowed that feminine energy to flow through. And I've actually got a quote here that I want to share from David Dider on that surrender aspect. Now, he says the word surrender is often interpreted as giving up, as weakness, as admitting defeat. And although this is one way to use the word, we will use it in a different way. Surrendering means letting go of your resistance to the total openness of who you are. It means giving up the tension of the little vortex you believe yourself to be and realizing the deep power of the ocean you truly are. It means to open with no boundaries, emotional or physically, so you ease wide beyond any limitations, sense of self you might have.
Wow, that is absolutely beautiful. That's so well written, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's an incredible book. It's a great overview. Just to give yourself a little bit of, you know, that space if you love reading books and you want to like dive a little bit more deeper. And then, yeah, I mean, it's what I also do. So reach out to me as well if you want to get into connection with how can I really dive into that and remind myself, because it's a journey, and it's a journey of like, we're living in it's still the truth. We're living in a very masculine dominated world. If we're going to learn how to balance and lean into the feminine, we have to band together and help one another.
Yeah, 100%. I wanted to know what would happen if a female, let's say, or even a male were out of balance? What would happen with us? What would, if someone's asking that question, listening to this podcast, they're like, well, how do I know if I'm even out of balance?
Well, like, let's just take my example of adrenal fatigue. And that's the most extreme example of it. But that was an example of, I mean, it was me being out of alignment as well, but it was pushing that, like, I can do everything. And I think illness and sickness, like, that's the extreme ends of the scale of being out of balance of your energy, because energy is your most precious resource that you have. And this is a lot of what I do with Reiki and whatnot. And we are all vibrating. And when we are vibrating and in balance, life works, life flows, life is easy. But when we put ourselves off kilter, and that is maybe we're leaning too much into that masculine energy, then things just don't work well for us. So we might not sleep as well. We might, like, I mean, the general examples could start with sleep, then stress, being more aggravated and angry is also one, like where you're snappy. You're just not actually feeling the ability to know what's going on, and you're feeling that kind of out of sortsness. And that's what I said, the out of sortsness then can lead to illness, because if you keep and you stay in this state where you're pushing and pushing and you're leaning too far into that masculine and the doing and that kind of energy, over time, it will lead to health problems, anxiety, adrenal fatigue, dare I say cancers, things like this. But that's what happens when we just push and push and push ourselves and we don't come into balance. And I am going to say here too, like, that's not just for females, that's men too. Men have feminine energy. Those CEOs, those top men that are at the top of their game, heart disease, strokes, because they are also pushing too far. They don't know how to lean back. They don't know how to take a break. They don't know how to sit back. I mean, they're the extreme examples, and I wanted to give those because I think sometimes they hit harder.
Yeah, you're so right. You're 100% right in regards to being out of balance. It definitely affects, like, our emotions, our energy. Like you said, we're energy beings, so of course it's going to affect our health, our body, and cause disease in our body, because we're vibrating energy. Like, if that energy isn't vibrating at a level that it's supposed to vibrate at that given time, well, there you go. There's a bit of an error message right there. And that to us is signs and symptoms of disease in our body. So I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you can go too far the other way too. So let's just, like, remember that as well. I'm sure we all know feminines or females who are too much in the feminine energy. And that is where we can just really go, like, into giving too much of ourselves, people pleasing, not knowing when to say no, that kind of wishy-washy attitude. We want to have a good balance of the masculine energy where we know when to say no, where we honor ourselves. So, you might recognize yourself in both aspects. It could be too much masculine where you are controlling, you are decisive, you are in that logical mind, or it might be the opposite way where you're actually leaning more into the other side and you're giving so much of yourself away, you're people pleasing, you're not putting yourself first. So yeah, there's a fine line.
Yeah, 100%. Everything has to be in balance. You can go either that way or a bit that way. So yeah, it's good that you mentioned that. But what does it mean for us to step into our feminine energy? What benefits does that bring to us, and what does that actually mean?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about stepping into your feminine energy, it's living life with more ease and grace, and it's about stepping into your purpose more. And I know, purpose is a word that's thrown around a lot, and people are like, what's my purpose? I don't know. Like, I want to find out.
Let's do planning day on what my purpose is.
Yeah. What is my purpose? But the more you open yourself and step into this beautiful feminine energy and see it as a gift, right? See it as the beautiful gift as it is. The more you're able to love, nurture yourself, the more you're able to get into relationship with yourself, be compassionate with yourself. And as a result of that, then you create this deep relationship that connects you to who you are. And then you're able to do things from a place of passion and purpose because you're in alignment with that energy. So that, I don't know if that speaks to anyone, but I know that for me, doing what I do and living the life on purpose is one of the best things, one of the best gifts. And I know that when I was leaning into that masculine energy, I didn't see that purpose. It was living for a different reason. So yeah, the benefit of that is being able to really step back from a hustle and grind and step into, as I said, ease and grace, to step into surrender and flow. And look, I know that surrender's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. It's a practice. It's a process, but the more that you take the time out to commit to that process, to commit to the stillness, to commit to leaning back into the feminine energy when you can, then the closer you'll get to living a life of that ease and grace and to that surrender.
Yeah, and that's what most of us are looking for. That's what most of us want, but we're not pushing away that feminine energy to step into it. So what are some practical tips for the audience to incorporate to actually step into their feminine energy? And we've spoken about what feminine energy is, what happens if you're out of balance, what benefits you get out of being in female energy, but the audience must be like, now, well, how do I do this now? How do I step into my feminine energy? How do I find out even if I have my feminine energy? What is my feminine energy? What do I do? All of these questions.
Yeah, I think there's a few key ways. Obviously, I spoke about, I think one of the first ways is to connect with your menstrual cycle. That's probably where you've got the biggest opportunity to do that. And start recognizing what's going on. Like, there are so many beautiful tracking apps out there for your menstrual cycle. You don't have to be just planning a pregnancy or to be monitoring. You should be monitoring and know what's going on with your menstrual cycle. And
100%.
Your menstrual cycle, it's the best opportunity to connect to your divine feminine. Because we're being forced as women to be so active in today's society, when you take that opportunity to step back, and even if you still have to go to work and you still have to show up, if you're able to know what your workflow is, over the course of a few weeks and plan it, that when you know your menstrual cycle's coming, those days are not as stressful. Those days are not as intense. This is a beautiful way to start. I try and plan as much as I can my work around my menstrual cycle, not doing like really busy, stressful stuff in the days leading up and the days of. And then when I'm in the high energy, and you'll probably be going, okay, like I get what she's saying. Like there'll be 10 days, like after you've menstruated and you're heading into ovulation, when you're really creative, you're on fire. You're like, wow, like I can do this. Men don't get that. Men just how epic is it to tune into that energy? And that's when you should be in those creative phases and when you want to be achieving or doing more work and working out harder. So that would be the number one thing, to tune into that state of being, and to also recognize that when you're menstruating, it's a beautiful time to connect with your intuition. So connecting with that is a beautiful thing. If you've got questions, like ask yourself these questions, journal about it. You'll start to tap into that feminine awareness. The other thing, the other couple of easy things that I could say is allow your man to carry your bags and open the door for you. I am married to a South African, and I don't know if anybody knows South African men, but they are very chivalrous, much more than the Aussie men's. Guys, I love you out there in Oz, but they do it without thinking. And my initial reaction, used to be, oh no, I can do it myself, like, you know. But until I learned about the feminine, and then I met my husband, and I was like, yeah, open my door for me. It's a beautiful thing. You know, let them walk on the side of the path, let them carry your bags. Like, just because you can carry it doesn't mean that you have to. Let them do the jobs around the house. If you've got boys, get them doing some of the jobs around the house. Teach them these things. Come back to those basics. The other thing is dress femininely. I'm loving. I've always loved dresses, but I was a bit of a tomboy growing up. I will say that. I was a bit of a tomboy growing up who just got out and climbed trees and ran amok. But I love getting dressed into a beautiful floaty dress, putting on some earrings. That like puts you into that feminine space. And I'm loving seeing these dresses like all over Instagram and whatnot these days. Like that really helps you to engage and feel in that feminine energy. Put some music on, dance, like just, and don't judge yourself. Allow yourself to be expressive and open. Like, you know, there's nothing beats putting on your favorite soundtrack and just dancing in the kitchen, or even you might want to join a dance class, go that step further to get into that energy, you know. And then I think one of the other things is, you know, getting connection with women, with other women. Start being open to sharing those parts of you, sharing your struggles. As I said, women were designed to be in communication. We were designed to be bonded, being in relationships with one another. We were designed to be collaborative, not competitive. So, you know, find a group of women. I don't know if there's moon circles where you are in Melbourne, but moon circles are an incredible way. I know that they've got them on the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast is where I used to live when I lived in Australia. And I know around the world there's certain moon circles. They've got them on online groups. But that's a beautiful way. When you show up to a moon circle, and don't worry, it doesn't have to be, you know, it's just the word that they use for it, or a women's circle. It's about sharing openly in a space with other women, you know, without judgment and just freely sharing. And that's a huge way to connect with that feminine sense of self, because we're all trying to do the best we can in the world, and there's so much that we're all navigating. But if we keep all of these things close to our hearts, we can't learn and grow. The minute we share it, we might just help one other person, because we know that then we're not alone in our struggle. That helps us to connect, and that helps us to break down those layers. And when we break down those layers, we get to the deeper and deeper parts of ourselves.
Yeah. At the moon circle, do they have berries? Are we going to pick berries there?
No. Definitely. They're run all different. I know they're run. I know that there's loads in Australia that are run. There's loads in Bali. I'm sure there's loads in places like that. And essentially it's just a place, like bring a journal, women just, you know, meet, bring some food and sit down, and every woman gets a chance to have a say, like have, you know, whatever's going on for them or what's up for them, and just have the opportunity to feel heard, I think. And that's one of the biggest things, is having the opportunity for someone to listen to you, because we actually have the power within us to heal us. It's just that quite often we don't have the opportunity to be heard, and we don't know what it is that's inside us. So when we sit in these circles, we get that opportunity.
Yeah, that's so well said. That's so well said. I'm just taking it all in. I'm just like breathing on it, taking it all in, understanding it. And I love that how you said also one of the key things is, you know, journal, dance, move, dress, you know, creative, be yourself, ask for help, allow for people to help you, whoever is around you. Don't just have to do it all yourself, and be in touch with your cycle. And you said it right. You don't have to be planning a pregnancy. I don't care how old you are, you know, unless you don't have your period and, you know, you've stopped getting your period. Track it, know what is happening and how that's affecting your body. Be like, I'm feeling amazing. Oh, what part of my cycle was I at? Because that is just an amazing power, an amazing asset that you have inside of you. And you said it straight right, that we have the healing power inside of us.
Yeah, no, we do. And when you start tracking your cycle, you start to see like, oh, I'm anxious a couple of days before, or I'm tired, or like you start to see. So then when you're anxious a couple of days before, you don't freak out and go down the anxious story cycle that goes on your head. You just go, oh, that's okay. It's my hormones. I'm just a bit anxious.
Yeah. And it's so interesting you say that, because I was due for mine about a week ago. And that day I woke up and I was like, my partner was working and I was like, oh, I just want to do something, but I don't want to do it alone. I just got that, I don't want to do it alone. So I'm calling, messaging these people, and literally the universe said, no, Mihaela, you're not hanging out with anyone. And I was like, I just sat there and I was like, oh, I'm lonely. And I'm like, no, you are not lonely. You're going to go and spend an amazing day with yourself. Go take yourself out. Go get a coffee. But I did fall into that trap. And, that trap I did fall in for, a good hour or so of that day. But then lucky, because of the knowledge and the experience that I have and, talking to amazing people like yourself, I pulled myself out and I was like, no, actually, no, I'm not lonely. I'm going to take myself out. I'm going to, be creative. And then the next day I got my menses, I got my period, which was crazy. So if anyone's can relate to that, track your period, track your cycle.
Track your cycle. And even that, what you just said, I love that. Take yourself for a date. Do the things that you want to do. Take yourself for a date. Right now, the only thing we can do here, beaches are closed, etc. We can go to the grocery store. So on Sunday, my husband said to me, because we normally go grocery shopping together, but he's very like, we've got like this amount of time, like we just do this, follow the list. I actually like to like stroll and wander through and see what new items are on the shelf. Like it's an outing almost. That fuels my feminine energy right now. So I said, please you stay home. I'm going to go to the grocery store. I don't need you. And I'll get things. And I love that. For me, filled my soul a little bit. Like it was just, I loved it. I loved being able to take my time, look at the items, be with my own company. So, I mean, that's obviously not a date. If I say take yourself on a date, maybe go and get a coffee, have some cake, go to a spa or something like that. But right now it's very restricted here. So that was my small way, but like make use of what you've got. Like I'm not going to restaurants or coffee shops or cafes right now because they're, to me, they're not safe. So
100%. I love that. And I love that. Yeah. Taking yourself out and loving yourself. I absolutely love that. So to finish off, I ask all my guests, as this is the Natural Health Podcast, what is your best kept natural health hack, Belle?
I guess I've kind of got two that I want to share. One of the things that I love doing is coconut pulling, and it just gives you incredibly white teeth. It's the most natural way to whiten your teeth. And also it's very good for getting rid of any bacteria or toxins and whatnot that build up in your mouth. So definitely coconut pulling is one thing, first thing in the morning. And the other thing is meditation. Meditation quite literally saved my life. When I had the severe adrenal fatigue, meditation was the only thing that could calm my nervous system down and allow me to have moments, and I'm saying moments, where I didn't feel out of control or overwhelmed with anxiety. So, obviously I've spent a lot of time meditating with various retreats and things I've done, but that practice alone, if you do not meditate now, go and download an app and start meditating 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, but make it a priority because it sets the scene for your day. I feel when I don't meditate, I know that I'm a bit more scattered. I'm not as grounded. I'm not as present. Meditation provides that opportunity to open up and experience. It also is a great chance to connect with the feminine as well, to hear yourself, to sit alone. They would be my two.
I love that you shared two natural health hacks. I love that. And oil pulling, I just did a recent episode on that. So many benefits on it, and it's been used for thousands of years by our ancient ancestors. It's just absolutely amazing what it does to our oral health, to our gums, to even just our breath. And it's just, yeah, absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that. So individuals that are listening to this podcast are like, oh my gosh, I love this. I want to step into my feminine energy. Where can I get in touch with you?
So if anyone is interested in connecting with me, please feel free to reach out. I am open. There is no closed doors, and I love to connect and chat with new and exciting people. If anyone's interested in working with me as well, I've got some one-on-one coaching programs that I run. I've also got Reiki sessions, which I didn't mention too much about the Reiki, but Reiki is also a great way to help you connect and peel back those layers. So if you want to find out more about Reiki, and what it is, if you're unsure, jump onto my website at www.bellasprie.com.au. And you can connect with me as well on Instagram. My Instagram handle is I am Bella Spree. You can connect with me there as well if you want to send me a message, ask me any questions. As I said, please feel free to reach out and connect. I love answering any questions. And if you are interested in the coaching or in the Reiki, I want to offer any of the listeners here today 15% off. Just mention the podcast and I will give you 15% off either a 12-week coaching package or a Reiki package or session, whichever you choose. But yeah, if you do, on the 12-week packages, I incorporate Reiki into all of those, making them quite unique, which is super fun. I love doing the Reiki sessions inside my 12-week transformational coaching package. And it's a really great way to just facilitate that change whilst doing coaching. So yeah,
wow.
It's incredible.
Thank you so much for offering that to the listeners. I really, really appreciate that. And Reiki itself has had dramatic change on my life, so I can definitely vouch for that. So if you are interested and you're listening to this, get in touch. I'll put all the details in the show notes. So you'll be able to follow Belle on Instagram, get in touch with her for her sessions and so forth. Well, thank you so much for being on this absolutely magical podcast. We could have kept talking for hours and hours and hours. I really, really do appreciate it, Belle.
Absolute pleasure. It's been so lovely being here, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to come on and just chat with you here today and connect with another beautiful, like-minded individual.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us at the Natural Health Podcast. And remember, the missing link between failure and success is your health.